Okay, so yesterday we started talking about the 10 reasons why the Buddha established the precepts, and that he listed these 10 each time he did so, and that all the precepts were established due to specific incidences that happened where people did things that others found harmful or others found inconvenient or discourteous and complained. And so the Buddha set up these precepts and mentioned these different reasons for doing so. So yesterday we were talking about the first group, the 10 advantages of having precepts, and the first major heading was to promote harmony within the Sangha. And then under that we covered 2 of the 3 points. The first one was to direct the monastics, so to give people direction, how to live their life, and then to foster peace and happiness among the monastics, so that the community would live in harmony. Okay? Because otherwise you get a group of people together and you don't have a common way of living or a common standard of living, and what's going to happen? We've all had roommates. Yeah. So, then it becomes very difficult to live in harmony, and when you don't live in harmony, then you create so much negative karma through having negative thoughts about other people, plus you waste so much time, ruminating, and this is wrong, and that's wrong, and what happened here that made this happen, and what happened there that made that happen. You know how we end up analyzing forever and ever and ever the psychological dimensions of how somebody says good morning, and what they really meant about it, and what that indicates about their personality and their state of mental health. Yeah, so it's to cut out all that kind of stuff. Okay, the third point under this one, to help the Sangha live harmoniously, is to protect the monastics. Okay, so what this is meaning is that equality is the basis for harmony within the community, and to make these first 2 things possible, to foster peace and harmony and to direct the monastics, we have to have common views, common behavior, common precepts, and also common concern for the welfare of each other. Yeah, and this one of the common concern for each other's welfare is so important, and I want to talk about this a little bit, because I see very much in Western settings that people want more than anything else to have community, but we've been brought up to be so individualistic that when we go to live with community, we don't know how to have community, and instead we have so much of a habit of, I like things done this way, and I want my way, and I'm here for how it can benefit me. Yeah, and that's one thing that I really appreciate, when you're trained in the Chinese tradition. That it's there in all the Vinaya traditions, but the Chinese really emphasize it. Is that you're really there to serve the community and to serve the Dharma. Okay? In other words, it's not just my trip. And I think this is one of the things we Westerners find most difficult, because our whole life we've been brought up, I, me, my, mine. It's not we are, it's I, me. Yeah? And so when we come to the, even when we think of like where to go to train, we think, well, where am I going to get the most out of it? And where am I going to benefit? And where am I going to grow? And where can I be acknowledged? And where will I get the best education? Or where will they leave me alone so I can meditate? Or, whatever it is we want. It's always centered on, what environment is going to please me. Yeah? And really, if we have the long-term vision of working to preserve the Dharma and working to benefit sentient beings by spreading the Dharma, then we really have to get over this thing of doing our own trip. Yeah? I mean, you'd never heard of a selfish bodhisattva. Yeah? You never heard of a bodhisattva who wakes up in the morning and says, all these sentient beings demanding my attention, and why don't they just leave me alone? I came here to do my bodhisattva practice and meditate on compassion, and these sentient beings are driving me crazy with all their wants and needs. That's not the image of a bodhisattva you find in the Mahayana Sutras. Okay? And yet, we talk about bodhicitta, but we all want our way. Yeah? And so this is, this idea of equality, that we have equal concern for each other, that we share our resources, so that when it comes time to go to His Holiness's teachings, or go to different conferences, or go to special events, or teach the classes in Coeur d'Alene or in Spokane, that we all do this equally. In other words, the people who are qualified all do this on an equal basis. Nobody develops, this is my territory. This group of people, I've been leading the class in this town for all the time. They're my students. No, we don't get into that. Okay, we don't get attached to that kind of thing. Yeah, and it isn't, well, I saved all my money before I came to the Abbey, so I deserve to be able to go on this teaching, and I deserve to have more retreat time, or I deserve to be able to do this or that, because look, I have the savings to be able to do it. No, that attitude does not go here. It doesn't fly here. Okay? We've really got to be equal and share the opportunities. And when it's not our opportunity, it's not our turn to do something, to really rejoice that other people get to do it. So I was really happy, with our community when Venerable Tarpa went, to Deer Park for a month. Everybody was so happy. We didn't get to go to these wonderful teachings, but we all rejoiced that she was able to go. Yeah, and I think that is a sign of people really learning to letting go of their own trip. There wasn't thing like, why does she get to go and I don't? Yeah, I think we all saw very clearly why she needed to go. Yeah, and we rejoiced at it. We were happy for her. Yeah, and so it's the same with the monastic conferences. It's the same going to different teachings or whatever. That we have some basis of equality, and we keep the precepts in an equal way. It's not that some people have certain dispensations, but other people don't. Some people have certain needs that other people don't have. So sometimes we have to tailor things to people's individual needs. I mean, if somebody has an injury, we don't send them out to, work with Yama in the forest. That's not what they need at that time. So, there are individual things that need to be taken care of. But basically we have an attitude of equality, and we share things and have a common outlook and keep the precepts in the same way. Yeah, because can you just imagine what it would be like if there were somebody in the community who was going, I am so much purer than everybody else, you know. You interpret the precepts like this. You're so loose. I'm so strict. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, yuck. Yuck. That would not be conducive to harmony, would it? Okay. So, you know, this kind of equality is really important. And so if people have this kind of equality and live together harmoniously, then there's much less likelihood that they will destroy the Dharma. Yeah? And here, what I'm meaning by destroying the Dharma is people who get on their own high horse and want to go off and start a new kind of Buddhism, yeah, that just, and a new kind of keeping Vinaya that just happens to coincide with their own ego and with themselves as a leader. Okay? And so, you know, if we think, oh, I know how to reconstruct the Dharma so that it is suitable for the modern world, and you know, I'm going to go create this, we could wind up throwing the Buddha out with the bathwater. Yeah, so this kind of thing that when people are really attached to their own way, when they're on their own high horse, want to do their own trip, you know, then there's more of a likelihood that people will start preaching their own views that happen to coincide with their own beliefs and what pleases their own ego, you know, instead of what the Buddha taught. And if you read in the Pali Sutras, you know, you see that there were people who did this. Yeah, so it's nothing new. Yeah, it's nothing new, but it's just very unfortunate. Okay, and you know, Venerable Wuyan, in describing this thing about you know, maintaining the Dharma, really says that, you know, says that okay, we have all these Dharma protectors, yeah, and every tradition has Dharma protectors, but there's only so much they can do to protect the Dharma, that it's really our practice that protects the Dharma, and it's our practice that sustains the Dharma. Yeah, which means we really have to, you know, by treasuring the Dharma, want to restrain ourselves from doing anything that could damage the existence of the Dharma in the world. Yeah, not that, you know, we're trying to maintain the Dharma for the sake of the Dharma. The whole reason of maintaining the Dharma is so that sentient beings have access to it. You know, and we have access to the Dharma because of generation upon generation of people who practiced it, yeah, and held it. And specifically, we have the opportunity to take monastic precepts because other people maintained the lineage and did their practice and kept the precepts. So it's you know, this thing of wanting to sustain the Dharma and do our share, again, isn't something new. We've just been on the receiving end of it. Yeah, and now it's our responsibility to be on the propelling end of it. Okay. Then the next major category of the 10 reasons for sustaining, for 10 advantages of the Dharma is, 10 advantages of establishing precepts. The next major heading is to transform society. So here, you know, again, it's becoming clear, we don't become monastics just for our own benefit. Yeah, that, or put it this way, we may become monastics for our own benefit because initially our mind is quite small in thinking about our motivation. But what we have to do is learn that because we're monastics, we have a certain kind of influence on society, and to be aware of that. Yeah, because when you wear robes, you aren't invisible anymore. Yeah, and so not being invisible has advantages. It keeps you on your toes. Yeah, I mean, if you look and dress just like everybody else, if you go out and drink and get drunk and get a little bit rowdy, nobody criticizes the Dharma or the Sangha because you do that, because you're just some ordinary Joe Blow. If you're a monastic and you do that, whoa, you know, I mean, it's affecting people's faith in the Dharma and people's faith in the Sangha. And so when you're aware of that, then you have these mental factors of integrity and consideration for others, whereby you don't want to act in negative ways because you have your own internal integrity, and because you know your behavior influences other people, and you care about other people, and you don't want them to lose their faith in the Dharma. Yeah? So it really keeps you on your toes in a very interesting way, you know, because when you're out in society, people notice you when you're in robes, which is why I think we should always wear our robes when we go out. Always, you know, because it's good for society and it's good for us. If we don't wear our robes when we go out, you know, and I've seen some places where the monastics don't, then it's very easy, you know, when you're out, well, you just slip in to see a movie, or you slip in to, you know, just do some kind of, you know, worldly activity, and nobody notices you, so it's okay. Yeah, if you wear your robes remind you, oh, I'm part of something that's bigger than me. You know, and I chose to be part of something that's bigger than me because I see that it's so painful just living in my own little world, always thinking about myself all the time. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we really can transform society. And I remember when I was at one of the conferences, I think it might have been the one at Gethsemane, with some of the Catholic Buddhist conference, and somebody brought up the point of society, of the monastics being like the conscience of society. You know, because many people say, oh, you ordained, you're just escaping reality, you're going to live at some monastery that is disconnected from society, you're rejecting everybody by going to, you know, to just sit there and watch your belly button 10 hours a day, and, you know, and people say that to us. And, well, first of all, if it were that easy to escape from the problems of the world, I think everybody would ordain immediately. Yeah? If all you had to do is shave your head and change your clothes, and your anger would be gone, and your attachment would be gone, and you wouldn't have any headaches in society, hey, everybody would do it. You know, but the problem is our afflictions come with us. Yeah, so you can't escape from your own mind by ordaining. As much as you try to, it doesn't work. And you can't escape from society either, because wherever we live in this universe, we always are in relationship to other living beings. Always. Yeah. Even you live in some cave in some remote area, you're related to all the animals and insects. What you do affects the animals and insects around you. There's always a community of monastics or meditators around you. It's not that people are, you know, only my cave and, you know, nobody else within 40 miles. There's always, you know, other people around, and you care for them, and you help them. And how do you get your food when you're doing some solitary retreat, whether it's in our romanticized idea of a cave or whether it's in a nice, you know, cabin? How do we get food? Through sentient beings. Yeah, how do we have the clothes we wear? Through sentient beings. And it's not like, even the meditators in a cave, it's not like you just move into your cave. You know, you construct a front of the cave out of wood. You make a door. You have mattresses in there. You have a meditation box. Where do all these things come from? Sentient beings. Human beings. Yeah? So you're always in relationship to other human beings and other sentient beings in general. It is impossible to escape from society. Yeah? And what I find very interesting is you see, like there were all these, in 1959 there were so many Tibetan meditators. They couldn't escape from society. Yeah, the communist Chinese came and took over the country. They went into all these mountainous areas and kicked the meditators out. Yeah? We're always in relationship to other living beings. Okay? So, given that we have the opportunity by being monastics to transform society. Yeah? And so by acting as a conscience to society, you know, it makes people ask themselves the question, what am I doing with my life? Am I living in a correct way? Yeah? And people, for example, like if we're trying to do as much green building as we can. We try and recycle and take good care of our environment. When people come up here, they notice that. It influences them. It makes them think, oh, you know, how am I caring for the environment? Yeah? People come up here and you can't just get in your car and go to town when you feel like it. Why? Because it wastes petrol. Yeah, so we try and only go when it's necessary and, you know, do all our errands at one time. Yeah. So there's this kind of ethic, this kind of mindfulness about our consumption, and that influences the people who come here or the people who read about the Abbey. So it acts as a conscience in some way. Yeah, and by our, you know, trying to generate bodhicitta, meditating on the four immeasurables, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, then it inspires other people. I mean, many people write to us and say that it's just very comforting for them to know that we're here practicing. Yeah, they can't be, but they feel so good to know that we're here. Yeah. So you know, when you transform the world, you transform it little by little by little by little. You know, it's not like we're going to transform the world by, you know, completely redoing all the legislation that Congress passes. Because you don't transform the world through legislation. You transform the world through changing people's minds. Legislation helps. Yeah, so we vote. And we may register our opinions on things, but you know, we're really trying to help transform the minds of people in society, because that transforms society. Yeah? Okay, so the 2 points under this heading of transforming society is to inspire those who have no faith in the Dharma, and to advance the practice of all those who have faith. So it's this double thing. Yeah, people who don't have faith, to inspire them. Yeah, get them interested in the Dharma. Even they're not interested in the Dharma, help them to reconnect to their own spiritual tradition. Help them to think about their own values and get their own values clear and living according to their own values. You know, like you see His Holiness's books, Ethics for a New Millennium and the new one, Beyond Religion. And there he's speaking, you know, to a completely secular audience. of people who by and large aren't Buddhist, but he's really inspiring them to think about their values and their place in the world and their responsibility to society, and the importance of having loving kindness, and refrain from harming. Okay? And then, to advance the practice of those who already have faith, so the people who are Buddhists, to give them, some energy to think, oh, look, they're doing that, maybe I can too. Yeah. And some of you said that before you ordained, you never thought of ordaining, and then you saw some other people who were living as, who were monks or nuns, and you thought, oh, well, they're doing that, why can't I? Yeah, and it inspired you to take precepts yourself and to really commit to the path to yourself. Yeah, so it does have an effect on other people who already have faith. Okay? So, so the way we benefit sentient beings isn't just, of course it includes teaching the Dharma and leading ceremonies and leading, giving meditation classes and some spiritual counseling and things like that. But also, part of the way we serve society is through serving the community and doing all the different jobs that we need to do to sustain the community. Because then again, other people come here and they go, oh, look, all these people, they're running this whole abbey by themselves. I was talking to my brother last week, and he said, how many residents do you have? And I said 10. And he said, how many staff members? And I said, none. And he was like, oh, I think he thought I don't know what he thought. But, but sometimes people think that, you just kind of sit around all day with nothing to do as a monastic. But no, we offer service, and we do things. And we have a very busy life. Yeah? And sometimes it's something people need to get used to. Being here is having a very full life, and learning. We learn how to use our time wisely. Yeah? We may be very used to just, couch sitting a lot. Being couch potatoes, and difficult to be a couch potato here. Because that couch is going to be moving. Yeah. And you're going to be helping to move it. Okay. But it's, part of the way in which we serve, and it, new people come here and they see us doing things that are beneficial, and it inspires them. And people who already have faith in the Dharma come here, or they read about us, and they feel very inspired about it. Yeah. So I think it's good, realizing it's not a thing if we want to be self-conscious, and it's not like, uh-oh, I can't make a mistake because everybody's looking at me, not like that kind of super self-conscious paranoia, self-centered mind, okay? But just realizing, oh, my actions affect other beings, and particularly they affect people's relationship with the Dharma. Yeah. Now, of course, I don't think it's good that people judge the Dharma based on the behavior of one person. That's not wise to judge a whole group based on the behavior of one person. But the fact is that sometimes people do. So given that they do that, let's make a determination that I'm not going to be that one person. If they're going to judge the Dharma, it's not going to be on the basis of one person's actions. It's not going to be my actions. Okay? Judge it negatively. Yeah. If it's going to inspire people, then may it be because of my actions. Okay, then the next heading, the third heading was to bring about individual liberation. So here we're getting into how the precepts help us as an individual to bring about our own liberation from samsara. So there's 4 points under this. So the first one is to restrain the restive. In other words, to restrain those whose behavior is off the wall, but who want to, who need help and want to restrain their own behavior. And then the second one is to stabilize those who have a sense of integrity. Okay, so these two have to do with resolving sentient beings' wrongdoings and their conflict, and to restrain the restive. In other words, okay, let's back up. We ordain because we can't keep the precepts perfectly. Yeah, if we could keep them perfectly, we wouldn't need them. Okay, so we take them because we need the discipline, and we know we can't keep them perfectly. Okay, that doesn't mean it's okay to break them and make excuses for ourselves, but it means that we will make mistakes and we will transgress precepts, but the precepts are designed to help us learn from our transgressions. In other words, to look at our mind and see, oh, I did this. I got really mad at somebody and told them off, or I got mad at somebody and slandered them and accused them of breaking a precept or accused them of misbehavior that they didn't do. And then to look and like, uh-oh, I broke a precept by doing that. Now, what was going on in my mind? Well, jealousy. Yeah, I was jealous of somebody, and so I slandered them. Yeah, I was jealous of them, so I spoke harshly to them. Yeah, or I was angry at them, or whatever the reason was. Yeah, they interfered with my happiness. Yeah. But, oh, look at what was going on in my mind. Look at how that came out of my mouth. Yeah. How can I learn from this experience of transgressing my precepts? Yeah. And so we reflect on that, and then we think, okay, I have to do something with my jealousy, for example. Yeah. Well, what's the antidote to jealousy? Rejoice. So I have to really practice in my meditation feeling happiness at other people's good qualities and good opportunities. And even if my mind rebels and says, why do they get it and I don't? I have to stick with this meditation because I'm tired of living with that whiny mind that is jealous and envious of other people. It is too painful, and it creates such a mess in my life, and so I'm going to stick with this meditation of rejoicing and really, do something with my mind. And it's not just learning about it and transforming our minds inside of ourselves, inside of our own practice. We have posada, our fortnightly confession and restoration of precepts, so that we go and we confess to the community and we say, I broke this precept. I got jealous and I slandered somebody. I got angry and I, spoke harshly to somebody. Yeah, and I regret it. And there's something about doing this in the presence of other people real live people who hear and understand you, or in the presence of the community, that really helps us to purify and to make a stronger determination not to do it again. Yeah? Because Okay, so there's some transgressions, like the ones in the category of lapses, payasatika. Those we purify by just a one-to-one interaction with another, one other monastic, and we go and we say, I did this, I broke this particular precept. If it's a lapse with forfeiture, we have 30 of them as bhikshunis, then, you either have to go, if you're within a boundary, you have to go before a Sangha community of 4 or more people, or if it's outside the boundary, you go with one other person, and you have to say, I obtained this robe, or I'm possessing this robe illegally. I already have enough robes. Yeah. And I need to give this one up, or I have too many bowls, or somebody wanted to give a donation to the sangha or to a particular monk or nun, and I changed the way that donation got used, or I encouraged the donor to give it to somebody else, not to the person they intended it for, and so I committed a lapse with forfeiture, and you say this, out loud. And there's something about saying it out loud that makes you, kind of like, well, maybe I need to work on this. Yeah, especially if it's something that you say out loud repeatedly, there's a repeated offense. Yeah, and we're constantly confessing this out loud, then having to do that sometimes gives us the energy to make a stronger determination to really work with our own mind. Yeah, so it's very, very helpful. This thing that I've been editing by Venerable Binyan, he was saying that whether we confess publicly or not is our own decision. Nobody else knows what's going on in our mind. Nobody can make us mention a transgression out loud. Yeah, he said, if you want to keep it secret, you can keep it secret. But what's the effect of doing that? If you do that, are you going to grow? Yeah. He says, on the other hand, if you're able to confess your transgression, and receive the support and encouragement from the community, then it really helps you to purify the transgression and to make the change so that you don't do it again. Yeah. And so for very severe transgressions, there's certain penalties that you pay in a Sangha community. If the transgression's really something quite severe, like the Sangha Visesa, a remainder one. Those are quite severe, and in that case, then the Sangha performs a transaction, and for a certain period of time, you don't have the 35 privileges of being a fully ordained one. So, and instead, you have to sit at the end of the line, you have to serve the Sangha, and so on. Yeah, so it's kind of an embarrassing thing, and you're not allowed to accept respects from juniors or from anybody else. So it's embarrassing. So it makes you think, when you're tempted to do that action again, then it's like, I better be careful. I don't want. That situation was really kind of embarrassing, because actually too, if the Sangha enacts, this penalty for doing that offense, then every time somebody, a new Sangha member comes inside your monastery, you have to tell them that you're on probation, or that you're doing penance or something. It's like, so. It's very helpful to make us, have a stronger determination to counteract things. Okay, so the point of this all is that when we confess, whether we do it individually in the presence of the Buddha, to one other monastic, or to the community, whenever we do this, it helps us. Yeah. So it's not a process that's designed to shame us and make us feel guilty and humiliated and so on. But it's a process that benefits us and helps us to purify. Yeah. So if you have in your mind some kind of thing, often when people have been brought up Catholic, it's like, this is too much like, having to go inside the, confession booths and, Well, no, this is not anything like that. This is something completely different. Yeah. It's your choice. You're the one who benefits, or you're the one who doesn't benefit, And so it's very interesting because when you're looking at things this way, you see that the basic assumption is everybody who's in the Sangha wants to attain liberation or full awakening. Everybody really sincerely wants to change. Everybody sincerely wants to purify their mind and release their bad habits. That's the foundation of it. The foundation is not everybody's a sinner and everybody's bad, and so that's why you've got to reveal your faults. No, the foundation is everybody has a sincere motivation, so they want to purify themselves. So of course they want to reveal their faults, because that's the way you purify and that's the way you progress. Okay, are you getting this? This is really, really important, especially since we grew up in a culture where so much of it was shame, humiliation, original sin, so it's so easy to import that as the assumption underlying confession, whereas in Buddhism that's not. The assumption underlying it is we all have a sincere intention, we all have the possibility, we have the Buddha nature. Yeah. And what I find even so interesting is even when you've transgressed a precept, there's still the assumption that you want to purify and you want to become better. The assumption is not that, you want to cover up and hide it and sit there and feel guilty and ashamed or whatever. That's not the assumption. And in fact, if you do hide certain transgressions, the severe transgressions, if you do hide them, then you face more penalty when they do come to light than you would have had before, because the penalty is not like punishment to make you feel bad, but like, wow, when you conceal things, check up again. What are you doing when you conceal stuff? Who are you really benefiting? What happened to your sincere intention when you're hiding? Yeah. So I think there's something here for us to think about and maybe to sort through in our own mind according to how we grew up and what things were taught to us when we were little about revealing our faults. Yeah. Because basically society does not encourage us to reveal our faults. Yeah. When Jeffrey was talking about those two mental factors of dissimulation, hiding our faults, and pretension, proclaiming good qualities we don't have, this is what society encourages us to do. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do when you apply for a job, or apply to get into a university, or apply to anything. Make up qualities you don't have and hide your faults. And, and this is what we see people doing even after they get the jobs. Yeah? Somebody makes a big boo-boo. Do they go to their boss and say, I really made a mistake and we need to take care of this because it could damage the country? Not the country, well, it could damage the country, but it could damage the company. But I mean also the country, you know. Does anybody go and say, I made a mistake that could have bad effects? No, people hide their mistakes, and then when they eventually come to light, they blame other people. Yeah? But where does that attitude get us in terms of our own self-respect and our own integrity and our own mental transformation? That doesn't get us anywhere. Yeah? We become Buddhist versions of Anthony Weiner and John Edwards, and you know? And it's like, you know, that's not why we joined the Sangha, is it? Yeah, if we wanted to live lives like that, boy, you know, the rest of society encourages us to have pretension and dissimulation. But the Sangha's encouraging us to really, you know, get in touch with our values and principles, and as much as possible learn to live according to them. And when we fall down, which we will, to pick ourselves up and depend on the kindness of our friends, the rest of the Sangha, to help get us back on track, you know? And so then we become like one of those trees growing straight up in the forest. Yeah? Working in the forest is quite an analogy to working with our mind. You know, this one part of the forest where I'm working in it right now, I know I'm going on a divergence, but it's quite interesting. It's like there's so many trees that have fallen on top of each other. Like, you know, remember fiddlesticks? Pickup sticks when we were kids, you know? So it's like that, you know. This one fell down. There was one that was growing straight down, but this one crashed on the one that was growing straight up, not straight down. And it bent that one. And then that one hit this other one, which bent over. And then this one hit that one, and that one hit that one. And then there's this whole area with all these trees crashed on top of each other. And they're all dead. Dead or dying. Yeah? And then there's other parts of the forest where the trees are growing straight up. Yeah? And we still have to clear out the you know, dead material, but the trees are all very nicely growing straight up. So it's kind of like us, you know. We can be with the Sangha and grow in the same direction, or we can be one of those trees who, you know, hides our faults and shame and doesn't want to purify and doesn't want to reveal things, and we become one that falls over and crashes into another one, and that makes, you know, several different things happen there. Okay, so anyway, something to think about. Yeah, you see these analogies out in the forest. I also came apart in the forest yesterday. Really interesting area. I was pulling away one dead thing, and there were a whole bunch of pine cones in an area this big. Yeah, huge number of pine cones. And then I looked closely, and then there's the chips, you know, somebody's been eating the pine cones. And then I noticed there's several holes in the ground. And then I looked more, and there's many holes in the ground. What do you think it is? They're bigger holes. They're not squirrels.
Well, my experience has been that this time of year and a little bit later, they're actually starting to put their winter stash away. And we used to actually, at northern Idaho, we used to rob them of these stashes because the Forest Service wanted to use the seeds to start new trees. You look a hole, and when you open that up, there was a whole treasure of dozens and dozens of cones that they will go and find in the winter and feed themselves. So,
But are these squirrels? You think it's squirrels, even though the holes are this big.
well, it's not for them, it's for the food.
I see. Okay, so they live somewhere else.
They live in the trees in their nest, and then they'll come.
And then they'll come down and get the food. Okay.
We found huge treasures.
Yeah. So there's, yeah, it's quite remarkable, these little guys. Talk about hoarding. Yeah. But then on the other hand, you know, there's no food in the winter, so you have to save for the winter, otherwise they're going to die. You can't blame them.
There's also all of that little materials that are actually fattening themselves up right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're covering both faces.
Okay. So, okay. So these first two of restraining the restive and stabilizing those who have a sense of integrity. Okay. So the precepts do help us to when we have that sense of integrity, they help to stabilize us because we can, we know we can purify. Okay, then the next two benefits, which are still about bringing individual liberation, are to eliminate present defilements and to prevent defilements from arising in the future. Yeah, so that's kind of obvious in a way, that if you keep the precepts, then when a defilement arises in your mind, you don't follow it, and so that's eliminating the defilement in the present, and by not following it now, you're creating the habit to not follow it in the future, or for that defilement not to arise as strongly in the future, because every time we're able to counteract a certain afflictive mental state, we're getting more practice in the right view, even if it's a conventional right view, we're developing that new perspective on life. And so that integrates that new perspective on life into our being so that next time, maybe the same object's there, but our affliction doesn't arise. Or if it arises, it's not as strong. Or if it arises, we're able to, instantly remember the antidote. Okay? So it really helps to stop the present afflictions and prevent future afflictions. So I think you can see this as you practice. Even if you have the 5 lay precepts, you can see by keeping the 5 lay precepts how they transform you. Because the temptation comes up to, take something that isn't yours, or to lie, or to, flirt with somebody, or, who knows what, sleep around. But, you remember your precept and you go, really, do I want to do that? Really? Yeah? Is it worth it to do that? And, how does it influence the other people who are important in my life? How is it going to really influence myself and my own self-respect? Yeah? And so then we're able to then remember, okay, if it's a situation of greed, meditate on impermanence. If it's a situation of anger, meditate on patience and fortitude. Yeah, and so we develop those new habits of seeing situations from a different perspective. Yeah, and then that helps the defilements not to arise so strongly in the future. Okay, and so all of what we've talked about so far, those 9 that have been broken into 3 categories, we're talking about how the precepts benefit in detail, and then in the general way, how the precepts benefit in general is in terms of the ultimate goal. Okay, and so our ultimate goal is for the Dharma to be forever sustained. So like I was saying, we may think of the sustaining the Dharma as the existence of the Dharma in the world as something outside of ourselves. But that's not it. It's if we sustain the Dharma in our own hearts, then by being who we are, we're sustaining the Dharma in the world. Okay? So sustaining in the Dharma isn't just, I've got to make my monastery and my meditation center and my retreat center grow, and I've got to get more members, and I've got to emphasize that people be loyal to my monastery and my retreat center and me, my teacher. No, that isn't sustaining the Dharma in the world. That's where we're getting into football team mentality, isn't it? Rah, rah, my football team. I want to grow my football team. I want my football team to be best. And everybody to look at my football team. No, sustaining the Dharma in the world begins with us keeping the precepts and having monastic decorum and monastic etiquette, and being a calmer person. We may not be calm, but calmer person, okay? Or happier person than we were before, okay? Or kinder person, more restrained person than we were before, okay? When we sustain the Dharma in our minds, then we sustain the Dharma in the world because other people see us, And also when we sustain the Dharma in the world, then yes, we might have a monastery or a Dharma center or a retreat center or whatever we have. But our motivation for doing it is not to increase our own fame and wealth. It's to really benefit people. Okay? So it's sometimes it's easy for people to make being a monastic into a career. Yeah, this is going to be my career. I'm going to ordain. That's like going to university. Yeah. And then after a certain number of years, then I'll go out and I will build an institution and I will become a teacher and I will do this and I will do that. And I. Yay. Yeah. And, that's not our aim. Our aim is to sustain the Dharma, which begins with sustaining the Dharma in our own heart. You can look like a monastic and have a big enterprise around you and know all the right words. Yeah, but that doesn't, necessarily mean you have Dharma in your heart. And at the time of death, it doesn't mean you're going to have a good rebirth. You can have tons of students around praying for you, but if you don't have a Dharma motivation, it's not going to do much good. Okay? So it's, it's really about our own development and how that links to sustaining the Dharma in the world. Okay? So are you getting what I mean? It's like we are sustaining the Dharma in the world, but the way of doing it is through our own practice and study and, and who we are as a person, not through creating a big this and that and the other thing with the wrong motivation. If you create a big this and that with a good motivation, fine. It can benefit a lot of people. But if you do it with the wrong motivation, then, not necessarily sustaining the Dharma. Okay? So this thing of sustaining the Dharma, I know that I didn't really get it until I took the full ordination, because before I was always thinking, I want to gain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. My enlightenment for the benefit of everybody. My enlightenment for the benefit. Yeah. I'm doing this for you, so leave me alone. And it wasn't until really I became a bhikshu that I said, I have this fortune because of 2,600 years of people who practiced before me. So now I have the obligation to practice to sustain this for future generations, because this is something really beautiful and really worthwhile, and I want to preserve it, and I don't want to destroy it, and I don't want it to get lost in the mud of indifference. Yeah. So that's our ultimate goal, to sustain the Dharma. Okay. Any questions? Comments? Yeah.
I had one, and something I'm still kind of looking on. I know that a number of years ago, I really struggled around, and it goes it goes with the Thursday night teaching that we did this past week on about how skillful means all of us is to somehow be able to understand and respect what people's capacities and capabilities are at any given time, and sometimes to make sure that they can really hear the Dharma, is that you kind of have to grow into gently, and sometimes there's some exceptions and things like that. And I know a few years ago, that I struggled around what I perceived as favoritism and special treatment and stuff. So how does that get held with the same thing about equal concern and everybody holding everything equally? How does that balance?
When you have equal concern for everybody, then you realize that everybody's different. And you were equally concerned for all these people who are different. Okay? The equal concern is in your heart. You care about each member of the community equally. But because people are different, the way they are trained and the way you act towards them are going to be different. Because if you do everything with one size fits all, it's not going to work. It's like with your clothes. Yeah, if we have one size fits all in robes, we're going to be in trouble. Yeah, because depending upon what the one size is, either some people can't get into it, or other people are going to trip over it. But if we care equally that everybody has robes, then we'll realize there needs to be many different sizes of robes. Okay? Getting it? So in the same way, we have equal concern about everybody in the community, but we see that some people are very weak in one area and strong in another, and somebody else is just the opposite. So they're going to need different things according to the areas and things that they're weak and strong in. But we care equally that everybody gets the training they need. Okay? So equality does not mean that we all squeeze ourselves into the same cookie cutter idea of a monastic. Equality doesn't mean that we all come out looking like Oreos. Oreos, have you ever noticed they're all the same shape, they're the same size, they're the same color, they have the same amount of filling. Yeah. We're not going to be, the purpose of being a monastic isn't to be an Oreo. Okay? Or it's not to be somebody brought us those cookies that are shaped like gingerbread man. Yeah, so we're not, our purpose isn't to become gingerbread people. Yeah. It's like everybody's going to have a different kind of dough and have a different kind of cookie cutter and a different thickness, and some are going to have to, some of those people are going to bake for 10 minutes and some are going to bake for 10 years.
Well, I think there were two things going on now that I'm few years beyond. At first, I was just newly ordained, so I was holding everything very,
Very tightly.
and
Yeah.
it wasn't explicit. You know, I was watching something, but this is so clear saying this is what's actually going on. I was seeing something, but I didn't have like an explanation at the time. So now that I've got some compassion for myself, because I'm not a cookie cutter, then I can see that everybody around me, I mean, it makes total sense. But at the time, I was like, this isn't right. And I was trying to fit everybody into that. What my view was, forget about anybody else's view, it had to fit into my view of what a monastic should behave like. I was holding it. I was so anxious about
Yeah.
it, right, you know?
Yeah. So we need common standards, and our precepts keep us with those common standards. Okay? But within that, yeah, there's more to monastic life than the precepts. Mm-hmm.
I also think as a community member, and I'm certainly still going into this, but recognizing that I don't have the wisdom to discern who needs what. It's not my job here. But to cultivate holding equal concern and taking care of my own faults, that's my job.
Right.
You know, and then let the people, the person whose responsibility it is to discern what people need, do that and trust that. That's another piece. But there's a lot of parts that aren't so explicit when you start out that and you don't know. And you know, out in the world we do help each other by telling each other what they're doing wrong. So I think it's also something that we train in how to be a good community member, supporting this very value.
Yeah.
The teacher or the leadership can do this before we have to know what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
They also, when I was in Nepal, yesterday I was looking at mother, and I had physical patients, and then I took mother, I was very slow, I mean, was slow, and I had to learn to accept that for myself. But then there was a point that I saw that mother also worked a lot, and she's older, I recognized, and I spoke to her and said, you have a different needs. Actually, I learned that here, to see that people have different needs. And I was thinking while we were talking about, for example, in this communist era where I grew up in my very early age, everybody should be the same. But it wasn't functioning, of course, but the vision was that everybody is same, and all recognizing their needs, for example, when they are sick. And I think that's good to learn that, and to learn to listen to see, and but this to work with the support.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate hearing specifically what sustainable Dharma means, because in my experience as a former Catholic, you know, it was building churches and, you know, ordaining many people and having these buildings and people all over the world, and we see what's happened to that. Faith isn't held in the person's heart and practice. So this is here.
Do you think that, like, practitioners reach a point where, or is there a clear point where there's, like, enough inner holding of the Dharma to, you know, then help try to sustain the Dharma externally?
Okay, so is there a point where there's enough internal Dharma to sustain the Dharma externally? Through our internal practice, we are always sustaining the Dharma externally. It's not like you have to reach a certain mark. It's like, you know, even you just take precepts and you're wearing robes and doing your practice. Like what I was saying, other people see you, or other people know, wow, there's people in this monastery who are cultivating love, capacity, compassion, equanimity, and joy. Wow, that's fantastic. And you're just one of those people, but you're sustaining the Dharma, and you're inspiring those other people to grow the Dharma in their minds. So it's you know, so it's also not like, okay, you do all this stuff, and then bingo, at this line you start benefiting people. Or you start sustaining the Dharma. No, from the very moment, we're all sustaining the Dharma, we're all benefiting people, you know. When you start at the beginning, it's in a much smaller way than you're capable of doing later on. Yeah, as you grow in the Dharma, your ability to sustain it externally grows. Yeah. Yeah. And you think even like, for example, you know, I mean, His Holiness coming somewhere. Yeah. So we're not His Holiness, but if we have the opportunity to organize a visit by His Holiness so that many people can meet the Dharma, that's sustaining the Dharma on the outside, isn't it? Because His Holiness can't come and teach without a whole network of people doing the organization. These things are mutually dependent upon each other. Yeah, you can't have a leader unless there's followers. You can't have a speaker unless there's people who organize. Yeah, so we do, you know, what our talents are according to our abilities at any particular time, you know, and those abilities, you know, are going to change as we deepen in our practice. Hmm?